Deep in the heart of the Amazon, there's a legend, a story whispered from one generation to the next. It tells of a river that boils from below, a current so hot it could poach an egg, brew your tea, or, as the cautionary tales warn, cook you alive the second you fall in. For centuries, the modern world wrote this off as a myth, a bit of folklore from one of the most remote places on Earth. A geographical impossibility. But the legend is real. It has a name, the Shanai Timpishka. And when a young geoscientist, guided by the wisdom of a local shaman, became the first to formally study this deadly natural wonder, he uncovered a secret about our planet that defies all expectations. This isn't a story about a volcano. This is something else entirely. This is the story of the boiling river. The story starts not in the dense, humid labyrinth of the Amazon, but in the memory of a child. Growing up in Peru, Andrés Russo heard this tale from his grandfather. It was a story wrapped up in the violent history of the Spanish conquest. As the legend goes, after the last Inca emperor, Atahualpa, was murdered, a group of Spanish conquistadors charged deep into the jungle, driven by an insatiable hunger for gold. To protect their sacred lands and get their revenge, Inca warriors led the invaders toward a trap, a mythical river said to boil as if from a great fire, a place where the unprepared would be cooked alive. The story was captivating, but as Russo grew up and chased a career in science, he filed it away as a childhood fantasy. He was training to be a geoscientist, a person who deals in facts, data, and the physical laws governing our planet. At Southern Methodist University, while working on his PhD in geophysics, he learned a fundamental truth. Boiling rivers exist, sure, but they are almost always tied to active volcanoes. Magma has to be incredibly close to the surface to heat that much water to a boil. The Amazon basin, however, is what's known as a sedimentary basin. There are no active volcanoes for hundreds of miles. The boiling river from his grandfather's story was supposedly over 700 kilometers, or about 435 miles, away from the nearest volcanic center. From a scientific standpoint, it was impossible. The amount of geothermal energy needed to boil even a small river there was unthinkable. So, he dismissed it. It was a great story, but that's all it was. Then, 12 years after his grandfather first told him the tale, the myth crashed into his reality. At a family dinner, Russo was retelling the legend when his aunt casually cut in. "But Andrés," she said, "I've been there. I've swam in that river." He was floored. His aunt, a woman he trusted, was telling him the impossible place was real. She explained that the river was warm, not boiling where she swam, and that it was protected by a powerful shaman. She had been invited and had even swum in it. This was the spark. The seed of a childhood legend, now watered by a credible eyewitness, grew into a full-blown scientific obsession. Could it actually be true? Could a boiling river exist where all of science said it shouldn't? Russo knew he had to find out. He put his PhD work on hold. He started asking colleagues in geology, government, and even the oil and gas industries if they'd ever heard of anything like it. The answer was a universal no. No one had documented it. No one had studied it. It didn't exist in any official records. He was told to stop wasting his time. But the question burned inside him. He secured a small grant from National Geographic, packed his bags, and headed for the Peruvian Amazon, not just to find a river, but to find an answer to a mystery that had haunted him for more than a decade. Finding the boiling river isn't exactly a walk in the park. It's a journey that takes you to the edge of the mapped world and then asks you to keep going. Russo's quest started in Pucallpa, a chaotic port city in the Peruvian Amazon that acts as a gateway to the wild jungle. From there, pavement gives way to jarring dirt roads, a bone-rattling drive that pushes deeper and deeper into the wilderness. When the road ends, the journey continues by water. A 2-hour trip in a motorized canoe takes you along winding, muddy currents. The landscape transforms. The signs of civilization vanish, replaced by an unbroken wall of green. The air gets thick, heavy with the smell of wet earth and decay. Finally, the canoe pulls ashore at a small clearing. The last part of the journey is on foot. This is the land of the Ashaninka people, an indigenous community that has called this forest home for centuries. And this is where the journey becomes more than just a physical trek. You can't just walk to the boiling river. You must be invited. The river is sacred, a place of immense spiritual power, protected by a guardian, a shaman named Maestro Juan Flores. Ruzo's aunt had made the connection. He was introduced to the shaman, a man whose knowledge of the jungle wasn't learned from books, but passed down through generations. Ruzo, the scientist with his GPS and water testing kits, had to ask permission from this man of ancient tradition. He explained his purpose. He didn't want to exploit the river. He wanted to understand it. He wanted to learn its story, both scientifically and spiritually. Seeing the sincerity in his quest, the shaman agreed, not just to let him see the river, but to guide him personally. With the shaman leading the way, they plunged into the forest. The hike was a muddy, sweaty slog under the oppressive canopy. The jungle is a symphony of noise, the screech of monkeys, the drone of insects, the calls of unseen birds. But as they walked, Ruzo noticed something change. The jungle sounds seemed to fade, replaced by a low, distant roar. The air, already hot and humid, grew heavier. A strange vapor, like a low-lying fog, drifted through the trees. The shaman turned to him and said one word, Mayantuyaku, the sanctuary. He explained that they were entering the home of the Yakumama, the great water serpent spirit who gives the world its heat. The roaring grew louder, and the smell of the air changed. It was the smell of minerals, of something ancient being cooked by the earth itself. They were close. The legend was just around the corner. After what felt like an eternity, the shaman stopped and parted a final curtain of thick vines. Ruzo stepped through, and everything changed. Before him was the legend made real. A river, wide and powerful, flowed through the jungle. But this was no ordinary river. A thick cloud of steam billowed from its surface, hiding the opposite bank in a ghostly white mist. The sound was overwhelming, not the gentle babble of a stream, but a constant, rolling boil that vibrated through the soles of his feet. He was looking at the Shanai Timpishka, a name that means boiled with the heat of the sun. The sheer scale was staggering. This wasn't some tiny hot spring. For over 6 kilometers, or nearly 4 miles, the river flows hot. It gets as wide as 25 meters, about 82 feet, across in some places. At one point, it even cascades over a 6-meter, nearly 20-foot waterfall, a torrent of scalding water crashing onto the rocks below. The air itself felt dangerous. The ambient temperature around the river could climb, creating a suffocating, sauna-like environment. Ruzo, the scientist, immediately pulled out his thermometer. He needed a number. He had to quantify the impossible. He carefully dipped the probe into the water. The reading climbed fast. 70 dis, 80 dis. It settled at an average of 86 degrees Celsius, or about 187 degrees Fahrenheit. That's more than hot enough to cause third-degree burns in seconds. In some pools, the temperature hit a staggering 93-degree wool, nearly 200-degree wool, just shy of boiling. To show just how hot it was, he did a simple experiment with tea bags. He dipped one into the current, and in seconds, the water around it turned dark brown. He was brewing tea in a river. He saw local people using the water's heat to cook and prepare their food. But there was a darker side to this wonder, a side that proved the most gruesome parts of his grandfather's legend. The shaman pointed to the water, and Ruzo watched as insects, frogs, and other small animals that accidentally fell from the trees were instantly cooked. There was no struggle, no time to escape. One moment they were alive, the next they were poached, tumbling lifelessly in the scalding current. He saw birds, lizards, even a small monkey that had met its end in the river. It was a brutal reminder of the river's power. A human who fell in would suffer the same fate. They would be cooked from the inside out. The legend was true. This jungle river would, without a doubt, cook you alive. It's moments like this, staring at a natural wonder that science said couldn't exist, that remind us how many secrets our planet still holds. The world is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. If you're fascinated by these journeys into the unknown and want to explore more hidden wonders, take a second to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss where we're headed next. Standing before a river that was hot enough to kill, the central question for Andres Russo was no longer if, but how. How on earth was this possible? As a geoscientist, everything he knew told him this place shouldn't exist. He was in the Peruvian volcanic gap, a 1,400-kilometer blank spot in the otherwise fiery Pacific Ring of Fire. This gap exists because one tectonic plate is sliding under another at an unusually shallow angle, preventing volcanoes from forming. The nearest one was 700 kilometers away. There was simply no magma source nearby to provide this much heat. So, the most obvious explanation, volcanic activity, was out. Russo confirmed this by testing the water's chemistry. Water from volcanic hot springs is usually very acidic and full of heavy metals and sulfur, giving it a distinct, nasty taste. But the samples from the Shanai Timpishka were essentially pure rainwater. It tasted clean. This was a critical clue. The water had fallen from the sky, not risen from the belly of a volcano. This led him to the second major theory, an industrial accident. The Amazon basin is rich in oil, and the river is less than 2 kilometers from one of Peru's oldest oil fields. Could this be a hydrothermal blowout, where an oil company had drilled too deep and accidentally cracked open a fissure, letting hot fluids escape? It was a plausible, if horrifying, idea. To check this, Russo went on a different kind of expedition, through corporate and historical records. He talked to the oil company, who gave him access to their data. He checked their drilling logs against the river's location and found no evidence of an accident that could cause this. More importantly, the cultural evidence completely debunked this theory. The shaman and the Ashaninka elders told him the river had been boiling for as long as their stories existed, generations before the first oil rigs ever showed up. This was natural, not man-made. With both volcanoes and oil accidents ruled out, Russo was left with a more subtle and far more fascinating explanation. He concluded that the boiling river is a massive, world-class example of a non-volcanic hydrothermal system. Here's how it works. Imagine the Earth's crust not as a solid shell, but as a network of cracks and faults. Rainwater that falls in the region, seeps into the ground through these faults, traveling miles below the surface. As it goes deeper, it gets hotter, not from magma, but from the planet's natural geothermal gradient. On average, the temperature of the Earth's crust increases by about 25 to 30 degrees Celsius for every kilometer you go down. If the water travels deep enough, it gets superheated and pressurized. Then, it's forced back up to the surface through another set of faults, emerging as hot springs. What makes the Shanai Timpishka so special is the sheer volume of this process. It's not just a couple of small hot springs. It's an entire fault-fed system, a vast underground plumbing network, disgorging enormous quantities of scalding water directly into the riverbed, heating the whole thing to near boiling for miles. It's a perfectly balanced geological anomaly hidden deep in the jungle where no one thought to look. To see the boiling river only through a scientific lens is to miss half the story. For Andrés Russo, the journey was as much about cultural discovery as geological discovery. His partnership with Maestro Juan Flores, the river's shamanic guardian, was a bridge between two worlds, the world of empirical data and the world of ancestral wisdom. The river is the heart of Mayantuyacu, a traditional healing center run by the shaman. For the Ashaninka community and the spiritual seekers who come here, the river isn't a scientific curiosity, it's a sacred entity. It's a place of power, a source of healing and home to jungle spirits. The shaman doesn't see a hydrothermal system, he sees the breath of the Yakumama, the serpent mother. The steam isn't just water vapor, it's the spirits of the jungle being released. This deep spiritual reverence is what has protected the river for centuries. Russo understood that to truly honor this place, he had to respect its traditions. In a powerful symbol of this partnership, he made a vow to the shaman. Every water sample he took from the river for analysis, he would bring back. After the data was extracted in the lab, the physical water itself would be returned to its source, poured back into the current. It was an acknowledgement that the water was more than just a collection of molecules. It was the lifeblood of a sacred place. This collaboration is crucial because the land is legally owned by the shaman's community. It's their home, their pharmacy, and their church. The shaman's knowledge proved invaluable, not just for navigating the jungle, but for understanding the river's subtle behaviors. He knew which parts were hotter or cooler, and how the flow changed with the seasons. He knew the stories of the plants on its banks, many of which are unique to the steamy microclimate the river creates. This duality, the scientist and the shaman working together, became the cornerstone of the river's modern story. It shows that science doesn't have to erase indigenous knowledge. They can work together, each making the other richer. Russo's geology gave a scientific name to what the shaman's ancestors had known for generations, while the shaman's wisdom provided the context, history, and the moral imperative to protect it. Bringing the boiling river to the world's attention also cast a shadow of danger over it. This sacred, scientifically unique place is unprotected. While the Peruvian government considers it a conservation priority, it lacks the full legal protection needed to secure its future. The very forces of the outside world that Russo represented are now the greatest threat to its existence. The forest around the river is being encroached on from all sides. Illegal loggers fell ancient trees, disrupting the fragile ecosystem. Illegal gold miners poison the watershed with mercury, a grim echo of the conquistador legends. And large-scale cattle farming leads to massive deforestation, as huge swaths of jungle are burned to create pasture land, pushing the edge of the forest ever closer. Then there's the constant threat of the oil and gas industry. The river sits on the edge of a major petroleum block. To an energy company, a 4-mile stretch of boiling water isn't a wonder. It's a liability, an obstacle, or worse, a resource to be exploited for geothermal energy. The fragile plumbing system that brings the hot water to the surface could easily be damaged by drilling. In response, Andrés Russo did more than just publish a book or give a TED Talk. He became a conservationist. He founded the Boiling River Project, a non-profit dedicated to protecting the river and its surrounding jungle. The project's mission is to use the very lesson he learned from the shaman: create a sustainable future by integrating modern science with the ancestral knowledge of the indigenous community. The goal isn't to build a wall around the river. It's to prove that the living forest and the sacred river are more valuable left standing than they would be if cut down. The project aims to fund park rangers, sponsor reforestation, and support the local community so they can continue to be the guardians of their own land. The fight for the boiling river is a small-scale version of the larger battle for the Amazon itself, a fight to protect a vital ecosystem from a world that too often sees nature only in terms of its monetary value. The story of the boiling river keeps evolving, and recent research reveals it might hold a chilling prophecy for our planet's future. A team of biologists from the University of Miami, led by Kenneth Feely, began using the river as a remarkable natural experiment. They realized that the intense heat creates a steep temperature gradient in the surrounding forest. As you walk away from the riverbank, the temperature drops degree by degree. This allowed them to study how a tropical forest responds to rising temperatures in real time. They mapped over 70 sites along the river, documenting every tree and plant. Their findings were alarming. For every 1 degree Celsius increase in the average temperature, tree diversity dropped by a staggering 11%. The areas closest to the river, the hottest zones, were dominated by just a handful of extremely heat-tolerant Amazonian species. The rich diversity of the normal rainforest had been baked away. This research offers a stark preview of what climate change could do to the Amazon on a massive scale. The boiling river acts as a living laboratory simulating global warming. Its heat-drenched banks are a glimpse into a potential future for the Amazon, a future where rising global temperatures could cause a catastrophic loss of biodiversity. This sacred site has become an unlikely and urgent messenger, warning us of the consequences of a warming planet. Meanwhile, Andres Russo's work continues. He and his teams are still trying to unravel the river's deepest secrets. One ongoing project focuses on isotope dating of the water itself. By analyzing its composition, they hope to figure out how long the water has been underground. Is it a journey of years, decades, centuries? Answering that will help them understand the full scale of this incredible system. The river continues to draw scientists, all working to ensure that the quest for knowledge doesn't harm the very thing they seek to understand. The story of the Shanai Timpishka is a journey from myth to reality. It's the story of a childhood legend that turned out to be a world-class geological wonder. It's a testament to the power of asking questions and having the courage to seek answers, even when the world tells you it's impossible. But more than that, it's a story about connection between our planet's fiery depths and its surface, between a modern scientist and an ancient shaman, and the undeniable connection between the health of these remote places and the future of our entire world. The boiling river reminds us that there are still mysteries left on the map, places of wonder that defy our expectations. It is a sacred place, a scientific marvel, and a fragile treasure. And its survival depends on our ability to see it not just as a curiosity, but as a vital part of a world worth protecting. The Earth still holds secrets in its deepest corners, waiting for someone to listen to the old stories and be brave enough to go look. Thanks for joining us on this journey to the heart of the Amazon. If you believe in protecting these natural wonders, share this story to raise awareness. And for more adventures into the unknown, make sure you're subscribed. What other natural mysteries do you think we should investigate? Let us know in the comments below.